We live our lives under a comforting delusion. We perceive the ground beneath our feet as an eternal foundation, a solid, unmoving shield. We build our cities, our empires, and our futures on the assumption that the Earth is a static stage. But geology tells a more malevolent story. Beneath the shifting sands of the Arabian Peninsula, deep within the lightless interior of the planet, a monster is breathing. It is not a myth. It is not a metaphor. It is a concentrated surge of primordial heat, a thermal dagger aimed directly at the heart of our civilization. While the world looks toward the sky for threats tracking asteroids, fearing solar flares, or debating the slow crawl of climate collapse, the true architect of our extinction is rising from the abyss. It has been there for eons, eroding the very roots of the continent. Scientists have given it a name, the Dani Plume. Today we peel back the layers of the Earth to expose a discovery that should have remained buried. This is not a story of wonder. This is a report on the inevitable. To understand the danger, we must first understand the mechanism. Deep within the Earth, at the boundary where the outer core meets the mantle nearly 3,000 kilometers down, the laws of physics take on a violent character. At this depth, the pressure is millions of times higher than at the surface. The temperature exceeds 5,000 degrees Celsius. Usually, the Earth sheds this heat through slow, predictable convective cycles, a planetary heartbeat that moves at the speed of growing fingernails. But sometimes, the rhythm breaks. Instabilities form at the core mantle boundary. A mass of superheated material, more buoyant and aggressive than the rock around it, begins to rise. It forms what geologists call a mantle plume. Think of it as a concentrated streamer hot express elevator of molten destruction, piercing through the darkness of the mantle. Most of these plumes occur beneath the oceans. We see them in Hawaii, the Azores, or Iceland. In those regions, the tectonic plates are thin, fragile membranes of rock that allow the plume to vent its energy through volcanoes, acting as safety valves for the planet's internal pressure. But the Dani Plume is different. It is a continental plume. It is trapped. The Arabian plate is not a thin membrane. It is a thick, cold, and rigid, lithospheric shield, what geologists call a continental root. It acts as a massive cap, a planetary lid screwed on tight. Because the magma cannot easily break through, the plume does not vent. Instead, it pools, it spreads. It creates a plume head, a vast pressurized reservoir of molten rock that is currently melting the underside of the Middle East from the bottom up. It is a silent invasion. There are no lava fountains yet. There is no smoke on the horizon. There is only a mounting, invisible pressure that the laws of physics dictate must, eventually, be released. We know the Dani Plume is capable of global-scale violence because it has already moved a continent. Between 45 and 25 million years ago, the Indian tectonic plate was migrating north toward Eurasia at a geological sprint. It was one of the fastest-moving landmasses in Earth's history. But as it passed over the area we now call Oman, it encountered an invisible force. Scientific reconstructions of the seafloor and seismic tomography reveal a startling event. The Dani Plume physically deflected the path of the entire Indian subcontinent. Think about the energy required to alter the momentum of 1 trillion tons of rock. The sheer thermal buoyancy of the plume acted as a planetary-scale bumper car, steering a continent off its trajectory. That energy did not dissipate. It did not go away. It is merely stored. The plume has drifted beneath the Arabian Peninsula, where it has spent the last 20 million years quietly corroding the continental crust. We are living on a shelf that has been thinned by a blowtorch for millions of years. The shelf is getting ready to snap. If the pressure of the Dani Plume reaches its breaking point tomorrow, the first sign will not be an earthquake. It will be a localized uplift. The mountains of Oman and the surrounding desert will begin to rise. GPS stations will record the ground swelling by centimeters, then meters. The Earth is literally being inflated by the magma reservoir beneath it. And then, the failure begins. This will not be a typical volcanic eruption. We are not talking about a single mountain like Vesuvius or St. Helens. We are talking about flood basalts. Imagine fissures spanning the length of the horizon, hundreds of miles long, opening simultaneously across the desert. These are the gates of the underworld. The landscape would be transformed into a sea of fire. In a matter of weeks, tens of thousands of cubic miles of molten rock would drown the land. The heat alone would incinerate everything for 1,000 miles. The oil fields of the Middle East would become massive underground infernos, contributing to a conflagration that would be visible from the moon. But the fire is only the beginning. To see our future, we must look at the Siberian traps. 252 million years ago, a continental plume similar to the Dani Plume broke through the crust in what is now Russia. The result was the Great Dying, the Permian-Triassic extinction. It was the closest life on Earth has ever come to total annihilation. 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates vanished. The Earth's atmosphere was poisoned. The oceans turned acidic. The planet became a stagnant, overheated tomb. The Dani Plume is of the same lineage. It is a large igneous province in the making. If it activates at full capacity, the Arabian Peninsula will become the epicenter of a global biological collapse. If the plume's pressure is high enough, it will do more than erupt. It will tear the plate apart. This is the process of rifting. We see the slow version of this in East Africa, but the Dani Plume could accelerate this into a violent, tectonic rupture. The Arabian Peninsula would literally snap away from the Eurasian mass. The seismic energy released by a continental scale failure would trigger earthquakes so powerful they level cities across multiple continents. Magnitude 9.5 shocks would destroy every city from Dubai to Tehran, from Riyadh to Mumbai. The displacement of the seafloor would generate mega tsunamis. These are not waves. They are walls of water hundreds of feet high, traveling at the speed of a jet engine. They would wipe out the coastal civilizations of the Indian Ocean in minutes. The world's economic hub, the source of the energy that powers our modern world, would be swallowed by the earth. The infrastructure of the 21st century, the pipelines, the fiber optic cables, and the shipping lanes would become a tectonic graveyard. But the most terrifying threat of the Dani Plume is the one we cannot see. Continental plumes are uniquely rich in sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and toxic aerosols. A full-scale activation would inject billions of tons of these gases directly into the stratosphere. The result is a volcanic winter. Sulfuric acid clouds would wrap around the Earth like a shroud, reflecting sunlight back into space. Global temperatures would plummet by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in a single year. Agriculture would cease to exist. The breadbaskets of the world would be covered in frost in the height of summer. This is not a cold season. This is a multi-decade famine. In this scenario, the human population would not just decline, it would collapse. The survivors would be left in a darkened, frozen world, fighting over the scraps of a civilization that was ended by a plume of rock they never even knew existed. There are those who suggest we could harness this energy. They call the Dani Plume a geothermal goldmine, a source of endless renewable power that could fuel the future of the Middle East. This is the height of human arrogance. Attempting to tap into a pressurized mantle reservoir is like poking a sleeping god with a toothpick. One mistake, one seismic shift, or one borehole that goes too deep could create a conduit, a path of least resistance for the magma. We would not be harnessing the power. We would be providing the trigger for the very collapse we fear. We are playing with a planetary-scale pressure cooker, and we do not have the tools to control the valve. The discovery of the Dani Plume is not a curiosity for textbooks. It is a reminder of our place in the universe. We live in a brief window of stability. We exist because the Earth has allowed us to. But this geological consent can be withdrawn at any moment. Scientists found the Dani Plume by connecting whispers in the Earth's seismic waves that slowed down as they hit the heat, ancient sediments that told of a shifting continent, and geodynamic models that pointed to a monster in the basement. It was a detective story where the realization comes too late. The abyss is no longer just a concept. It is a physical reality beneath the dunes of Oman. The heat is rising, the crust is thinning, and the abyss is looking back at us. Geology operates on a scale of millions of years. But the event that ends a civilization takes only seconds. Sleep well, knowing that the floor is thinner than you think. The end is beneath you. If you are prepared to face the truths that the world chooses to ignore, stay with us. There are many more anomalies waiting to be unburied. Subscribe to Discovered and activate the notification bell. In a world of comfortable lies, we provide the cold, scientific evidence of what is coming next. Because once you have seen what lies beneath, you can never go back to the delusion of safety. See you in the next investigation.